Welcome. This is the DNX Show. Thanks for being here. We do this every Thursday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We talk about domain name investing. I mean, talk about an exhilarating topic. It is if you got money invested in this stuff, believe it. Okay, so there's two hosts of the show, myself and Josh Reason. Josh was on holiday, got back, has a big day today, moving his family around. He's like a gypsy. Guy's moving around Florida, and he's not even from this states originally. And guy acts like he owns, this is it the Sunshine State? Yeah, that's it. But anyway, he might drop in if he can. He said next week we'll be back to normal. He didn't promise, but he did say we'll be back to normal. So today we're going to go up until, well, if you're on the East Coast, we're going to go to 2:20 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go to 11:20 a.m. Pacific because I got something to do at the 11:30 a.m. Pacific. But I've been busy time because of that GTLD stuff. But we're going to talk about a lot of cool topics. So I'm very thankful I got some friends on stage with me. Arif and Jason. Summit is back to co-hosting. He thought he was done, but he's back. But so we got a bunch of, we'll say, co-hosts today, and David, and hopefully other David's there. But anyway, so, and I see you, Rico. You got to come up here. Brewster, Rooster, and Adam, and everybody. KW, I think I invited you up here. Larry, I'd like for you to, straighten me out a little bit if you get a chance. So it's just going to be us. Ragu, why don't you sit down there for a while? Okay, you can come on up if you need to. And King. And Zoot, haven't heard from you in a while. Jeez. So we're just going to be talking about domain investing. You can check out the outline, dnxshow.com. A lot of stuff, and I mean a lot of stuff. So I guess we'll just get rolling. And one thing that wasn't on the outline that I'm going to start with, Summit, is something you brought to my attention about a domain name called Fondo. I think it was Fondo, right? So for was it 9,000 or 10,000? And you were like, geez, are we pricing our names right?
57,000.
Yeah, what was that name? It was
57,000 in 2024.
Let's see.
I thought it was a brandable, but David said that it means fund in Spanish. So it's
Yeah.
not directly fund, but fund is also one of the meanings of fondo. It means, but it's also commonly used for funding in Spanish, at least in Spain.
Oh. I'm here. I was just
Just
messing around.
quickly, hi Todd, thanks for inviting me up, man.
Hi, Ira. No, it's looking glad to have you here. Nice to speak to you and see what's going on. And thanks, KW. But you guys, feel free, chime in. We're just gonna talk about. I'm just looking at the outline. Jesus, we got a lot of stuff there. But one of the very first things, since I'll just go down the list, even though I do jump around, and I can't. I look forward to hearing. I guess Josh had that experience, a bad experience with Sav, and it didn't get any better. So,
Is me or is the sound gone off?
can you hear me or no?
I can hear you. I think Summit's having problems.
You can hear you.
Yeah.
You're clear, Todd.
Yeah, Summit, you when you were talking, you
Testes.
blacked out.
Testes.
Yeah, we're all here, just all partying. It's like in person, and Summit's fading out. Okay, Paul gives the thumbs up, so that means stick it. Paul just doesn't have the middle finger, so he's like, fuck you. Hey, all right, well, we got a lot of stuff. Hold on, Summit's coming back up. Okay, so I want to hear what you guys think, especially you guys. I mean, all of us, any of us. So there's been this new thing. I'm trying to really gauge what it is, but it's basically marketplace transparency. And what I'm getting at is there's one thing like spying on Adam and spying on huge domains. It's like these spies. So they're tracking the sales from these platforms. I guess maybe trying to expose how low the sell-through rate is on these platforms, or just trying to, are they trying to be fair and just say, hey, we're trying to make it as transparent as possible? But please, anyone chime in. What do you know about these two new accounts on X, about Adam Spy and Huge Spy? Anybody?
The Atom one is called something else. It's not called Atom Spy. It's Atom something.
Right. Okay. So the
Huge
names
spike.
I don't have the names
Well,
correct, but what are they
in case
doing?
of Atom, it's expressly against their terms of service. Atom doesn't allow you to publish sales unless you want to. I mean, publish other people's sales unless the seller wants to.
So it's like pirate radio. But anyway, I think is the gist basically they're trying to say here's what's really going on these platforms with regards to sales, and um, you know, as much as I don't know when they're violating it, what I don't know if it's breaking a law in a jurisdiction. You know what I mean? Taking information and then sharing it. But anyway,
Probably not, but how do they even know unless the information is coming from within Atom? These are just guesses, right? And even if you look at it in terms of guesses, the last report I saw was 19 names with an average of $7,800. Assuming Atom has about 300,000 domains and they're selling 20 domains a day, 365, that's 7,000. That's actually more than a 2% STR. So it's looking good for Atom, actually. I don't know about huge domains, but
do those numbers again. That's if they have 300,000. We'll guess that they do. They were at 200,000. It seemed like now 300. But you're saying,
so let's just,
yeah,
300, 350 maybe. I don't know. Let's just assume, right? 350. It's not much more than that. It's in that ballpark. And the last report I saw on this Atom whatever it's called, was 19 domains at 7,800 average selling price. That's one day.
Yeah, but there was other days they only sold like 9 domains, and if you look at yesterday, they sold like 12. They were all like $3,000, so the bins aren't very high either.
Okay, so maybe we can average out to 10 domains a day, right? I was in fact speaking to Dan Serra, and he said 10 domains a day also is not bad, assuming that's still a 1% STR. For a marketplace, that's pretty good.
well, I'm just getting it. Hold on, that just doesn't 300,000. You're right. 3,000 would be 1%, and I guess you're right. 300 in a month. That's 10 a day. But Darcy, I was going to say, I don't know if we know if they're publishing 10. How do we know those are the only ones? I mean, I guess I don't see how is this person uncovering unless they're tapping into the system. What do you believe is going on there with these two sites? How do you think that they're, getting this data?
I assume they're just scraping it, which I don't think is illegal.
Yeah, they're scraping. He's never logged in to Atom, so he never agreed to any of their terms. And he's scraping and looking for changes. So he can't be accurate on the sales price because all he can go by is what it was listed at. And also, if you noticed the recent sale of James Booth, he did a rental, and that showed up as a sale too. And he said Atom uses the same sales page, when a domain sells, as it does if it gets rented. So he's not able to differentiate between a rent and a sale either. So that's one of the problems with it. He just knows that something happened with it. So he says, it's been sold or whatever. Here's what the asking price was at the time. So until he finds a way around that, you can't assume that all of those are sales either. They may be rentals, or it could have, or whatever else. I think rental is the only other option that they have. That would
I
be
don't
not
think
considered a
rentals
sale.
are a large percentage of what they're doing right now. I don't even
No,
think
it's
it's a
probably
small percentage.
more likely to be an LTO than a rental.
Right. Which is a partial sale because it did sell but hasn't completed the sale. Well, rental is not a sale at all, but it is something that happened with the domain name. So that's pretty much what they're able to determine by doing the scraping of all
So
of it.
if you were to guess, Adam, what percentage of accuracy would you attribute to the Twitter account? 80%, 50%,
Well,
75%?
well, by the domains reported, I know it's been accurate completely, as in what we know. Like if someone's reported a sale, it's also been on that list. And I don't think anyone's reported a sale that hasn't been on that list. So, um, but as far as price wise, I'm not entirely sure. But we know that it's not going to be accurate on the price all the time. It's just whatever's listed on the page is the buy it now price is what he's going by. Obviously people could do make offer. It's going to, a lot of them are going to sell for less. So that's why it says, listed price as opposed to it's sold for this price. So that's, and obviously the rental is the outlier. If there's, we don't know if it's been rented or
Is
not.
there a lot of negotiation on Atom? I was under the impression that it's mostly bin or LTO.
I think so. I don't really use Atom, so I don't know too much about what you can do and what you can't do on it. So that's the limit of my knowledge there.
I just moved my entire portfolio, for sale portfolio, to Atom uh, earlier this month. I was supposed to do it in the first,
Why'd
but
you do that?
I liked the. So we tried putting it on our own site. We had the option of either putting in Shopify or one of those WordPress plugins, which WooCommerce or something like that. But it's just too much work. Atom has all that sorted. The display aspect is completely sorted, and there are a lot of other advantages that you can set discounts. You can create logos. Logos are cheap now. I think they're 10 cents each. We created about 300 and some odd logos. Aside from the 60 premiums, we added about 340 other domains. So we created logos for that, which cost 340 credits. So, but, and of course, more than that, because some logos were crap and we had to redo them and all that. But all in all, worth the effort. Pricing was easy enough. Download the sheet, add the prices, upload it again. There is a mess up when you upload it because your previous pricing for plus or standard listings disappears. And also, you can't do capitalization using the sheet. There are issues, but it took us a week to do this. I had a couple of boys sitting on it, and they did it fast enough, like 2-3 days to do the images, 2-3 days to do the capitalization and pricing. Couple of hours each day, each guy. It wasn't too bad. And now the display is great. So at least we have a link where we can send people and say, okay, if you want to have a look at the domains, you can go to this particular URL and have a look. It's better than putting a list on the website. The lists weren't working out. I tried table press. I tried, using divs and all that. Just the layout sucked. I like the Atom layout. The commission is the same, 15%, so it doesn't really matter.
So are
The
you still
domains are also
listing your
listed
names on
on Afternic.
Afternic?
Yeah, they're already there on Afternic. I haven't moved them from Afternic. But the landers are now Atom.
Okay.
And these are white label, right? This is your white label marketplace. These aren't premium names.
I haven't set up a white label. So the list includes my 60 premiums and 340 something plus listings. I don't have anything on standard because I don't mind paying 15% if they're going to advertise my domain for sale. So I'm willing to pay that extra 5%. Doesn't matter much.
So, I mean, just so I'm clear, I don't know how it works, and I should, is you just set the servers to add them for those ones, but it's not, haven't set up a white label. Really, a white label to me is just the listings that aren't premium. You don't need to have a, your own domain name, directed
No,
to.
I see the misconception. You can add your own premiums. Actually, you can add everyone's premiums to your white label. So white label is like a store. I've not set that. I can set it up. It's not too much of a headache, but right now I just wanted to get the display done because I had to show the domains to someone for some bulk deals. So that was the basic idea.
And it's 15% commission if you do what? That's what it is. I thought it was more than that. It's more for the premium,
If
but
the
for the
domain sells through Atom, yes, the The premiums commission is much higher. It goes up to 35%, I think.
I'm going to start it now. That market. Just we take half. We take half. You know, we're going to take 55%
Yeah.
because we want more than half because you guys are domainers and just put. I think this is going to be a benefit to Adam, that the posting of, you know, trying to make it transparent. I don't know if the intention is to was to say, oh, look at their sell through rate. No one's going to be looking at, oh, they have 500,000 names and they're only selling 6 a day, or they have 200,000 names and they're selling 19 a day. People are going to think, hey, that's another place that's selling names. Thanks for posting that. And then most people from the outside think, you know, so that's a marketplace, huh, that sells names. And they look at the names that are selling, and we all look at the names. I've looked at a few of the posts, and I hope there. And I'm thinking, geez, none of the names struck me as, geez, that's a one that's trending these words. Maybe I'm missing a little bit, but anybody here on stage look at the list of the names that have sold on either Atom or Huge Domains and think, hey, that's a word, a keyword, or some trending word that I haven't thought of. I mean, what are we getting out of this as domain investors? Anybody want to contribute? What are you getting out of seeing this list, regardless of the sell-through rate?
So I can say something, but I didn't spend any time with Adam lately. But when I first did, Adam had plenty of information, very temporal. For instance, for Samit, I would say it's almost going to inundate you having put everything on. I felt that it was better to use Adam with key names like, okay, you're heading into the shopping season or you're heading into cooking season, and then stick with that and track that, because with your white label, you can customize it and tweak it in so many fabulous ways. Like you might figure out, but you can't spend all that time. I mean, you have people, I know you have people working for you, but the more names you have in Adam, the harder it will be to customize and get your results. That was my opinion when I did it when they first came out. There could be new things that I didn't do.
For me, KW, it's just very simply a matter of display. I just want the presentation. It's like, when you go to a flea market, everything's just on the table. You find what you want, and the the list on the website was looking like that. Now it's a nice fancy display with each domain having its own space, the exact price being shown, an LTO being offered, a rental being offered. The display is nice. The logos are but it's a logo, right? It's better than nothing. And the logo creates the imagery. Again, anyone who buys the domain is probably going to change the logo. So it doesn't really matter. But it's a nice, and these are AI logos. These are not like, I'm not paying a buck a logo to a designer or whatever.
Right.
Nor am I paying them.
That's exactly what I'm talking about, though. For instance, the I got way better results when I did pay attention to perhaps paying the dollar for the redesign, because you may have a name that you figure out that's not at all what I thought it would be used for, but all of a sudden, not only is it like a little bit getting looked at, it's getting plenty of hits, and it's almost like it's almost like when you get up really early in the morning and you go fishing, and the fishermen know where to go for which kind of fish, and that's it, and they don't tell anyone else. So if you're paying attention, that's what Adam is really good for, I think. Like I'm trying to say, if you happen to know, like something I learned on the last show, somebody shared it. It was, I thought it was really good information about the 2 months that um,
I don't hear anything.
Yeah, we
I
lost
thought
her.
it was my network again.
Lost her. Yeah.
Yeah, KW, but she was coming back and forth on stage too. KW, are you there? You might be having some issues. That's New Jersey, buddy. I think she's in New Jersey. I don't know. She'll come back. What was I going to mention? No, I know we're going to have a ICA social call on Wednesday, August 19th. So for you ICA members, get ready for that. I'm going to make an announcement soon. But I've got a ton of topics. Let's get KW back up here so she can finish her thoughts.
Yeah, that's a good list you have today. Let's just run through them first, and then we can always. Okay, W's back.
Hi there. I'd like to hear about the ICA call. I have no idea what you guys heard last, but I can finish it simply by saying that the time of the year, the dates that the certain names always get more traffic. Adam has the tool to tweak it and then have your name stand out, similar to knowing the best place to fish, that like on what time of day and what time of year. It's a really good platform for that. If you have people that can pay attention like that, I think you miss out. What I felt like I missed out by having so many names all at once, and then losing the best information that you could get from it, which is seeing what's happening with it.
So the display I have, you can see the link in my bio. I have the portfolio listed in my bio. But the premiums come first, followed by the plus names. And Atom already has the tech to match the name. I mean, that's the whole point of the platform is discoverability. There's zero discoverability on Afternic right now because they don't even have a marketplace or search bar or whatever. You have to search through GoDaddy. And GoDaddy RegPath or any other registrar RegPath for Afternic names, I can't even get Afternic landers to load right now. I have 50, 60 names at Afternic, which I didn't move to Atom because those are super premiums. But the landers don't function from Asia. I've tried from 3 different connections. From my city, it doesn't work. Someone I know in Singapore saw he couldn't get them to work. All the browsers have updated to a system where a non-HTTPS domain can't be transferred to a HTTPS URL. Like what Afternic does, they take the domain itself does not have HTTPS, but Atom seems to have figured that out. Where if you type the domain without HTTPS, it's forwarding it to the correct URL. Again, it's an exercise, right? You got to keep changing things and see how it works. Maybe it won't work. I'll move back. I'm actually, if this doesn't work, I'm going to do self-hosting, but that still needs a lot of work, right? So I'm going to give it 2-3 months here, and then we'll see.
Good luck. I'm sure it's going to be great to hear what you find out.
Yep. As Summit said, we got a big outline, but I'll revisit that ICA thing for you, KW. But yeah, so check out our outline, dnxshow.com. Summit, I want to let you pick the next topic, but let me just say, yeah, so next Wednesday, the following one, the 19th, there's going to be an ICA social call. But that's a call, too, where I'm thinking JT and I will be hosting it, where you can say, hey, here's, we want this to be something that the ICA focuses on. And you can think, they're going to say, okay, we'll try to put it on our agenda. If it may have been something mentioned several times, I guess my point is, it is the place to say, hey, I want to go on the record here to say these are issues that, as a domain investor, and you don't have to say all of us worry about this or we all like to talk about this. You can just say, this is me, one out of, the group, but I want this to be addressed. We're trying to, not trying to separate all the legal stuff that the ICA does, but there's a lot of domain investors who are like, listen, the legal stuff, I don't care about. They don't care about. And now everybody wants, prices to stay low. So sometimes that's, on the line of, compliance and whatever. But the point is, these social calls are fun to be part of, but also it's, if you're, that's where you can make your voice heard. And then you can come back later on and say, I thought my voice was heard. How come nothing's going on in this space? And Arif, I know, you think, I brought up stuff and then they don't have this call. You try to hold people feet to the fire. And then if you aren't getting the response you want back from, JT's on the board, Braden will be there, but of course Zach and Camila and well, I could go through all the people on the friggin' board. It doesn't matter. But then you can say, hey, I've asked about this and I don't think anything's getting done. And then if you think you don't want to be a member, then don't be a member. But the point is, I find that you can get things done. There's a lot of great topics and great concerns that people have that, talk about. I like to bring it up. Well, on the social calls, are great, but you don't have to go to the ICA annual meetup. You can just go on a call and say, listen, I want to, and then you can follow up with them. But it's nice to make it public. And then these are recorded calls too. But just, somebody wants to say, I have a concern about these registrars. It's like a registrar code of conduct, or we're going to, somebody said I was going to let you pick the topic, but I do want to talk about GoDaddy Appraisals again. But anyway, I hope to see a lot of your faces on the ICA call, and let's talk business there. Okay, that's our business organization. It's a domain name organization. So yeah, like I said, there's brokers, lawyers, registrars, registries, but it's mostly domain investors. But we got to speak up and, not take control of the organization, but have a say and make ourselves known. All right, Samit, what topic on that outline do you think would be a good one? Go ahead, Arif. Before Samit goes, Arif, what do you want to
just say one line about ICA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm going to try to be there unless I got like more family health stuff to deal with. I have a lot lately, but I'm really going to try to be there. This should be something they have 2 or 3 times a year. Again, like a year and a half ago when I stood up, I had some things I wanted, the ICA to address and see what our scope would be going forward. And, they weren't really happy when I mentioned it at the time, right? They took the mic away from me. But then they apologized and they said, we're gonna do something. And now we're a year and a half later, right? So I'm hopeful, right? They did discuss this in New York with the 50 top richest people in the ICA, right? But, to me, that's kind of almost worse because it's like it's only one small sliver. It should be open to all members. And it should be regular, and we should have them as often as it is that people need to discuss things, and as long as it takes. Right? It should be an open, bottom-up organization mostly. And I'm not angry against them. I was angry about that, but they do a lot of good things. Is what I mean to say, right? There's a lot of stuff there that people don't like. The legal stuff. I think the legal stuff is important, right? But I do also think that the scope of what they're doing shouldn't be so narrow necessarily, and we should look into other things. And it should be up to all of us to put in ideas of what we should be looking at, right? And something like this is hopefully it's not just a social where people are going to say, oh, well, how's the weather there and whatever it is, right? I think one in the past was a little bit like that, but hopefully I think social is the wrong word for it, right? It should be like a meeting, right? A membership meeting where we discuss what's important to us, right? And, sometimes things will be, that a lot of people want to support, and other times most people don't want to support it. And sometimes it's like, okay, not a lot want to support it, but it's something super important, and vice versa. So I do think the meeting is important. I think it should be a little bit more frequent and a little bit more serious, and shouldn't be limited necessarily to an hour and then it's cut off. But that's that's
And anyway, on their behalf,
ICA has
go ahead, Samit.
2 a month.
Well, 2 a month
Yeah,
is not going.
BC
But
has
anyway,
2
now
meetings
there's
a
one
month,
on the
but
calendar.
believe me,
They'll make so they can never do it right. Don't call it a social, make it a membership meeting. I agree with things like that, but the point is, it's like, all right, we got one on the calendar. Come on in, and those things that you're saying, those are the things. And then, if, like you say, once every month, I think once every 2 months is reasonable. That's 6 a year. They're certainly not having it plus the annual meeting. But anyway, I am going to be there. And I'm going to bring up any topic that, so if somebody wants to give me a topic and you don't even want to talk or you can't make it, give it to me. I'll bring it up and then I'll report back here in one of these rooms. But I'm just because I'm a member too, I of course, all the folks, I consider them friends and colleagues, but I can be critical too. It doesn't matter to me. I don't owe anybody anything, but I like the organization and I like the setup and I like the new president. I like him. But still, if I think, I think we all have different issues too. And I've always been like a set it and forget it type of domainer. And you guys have heard me over the last few years. I'm like, I've been going from if I was going from 6,000 to 12,000 domain names and spending even more money instead of going from 6,000 to 800 and, working really ancillary businesses in the domain space now. Yeah, so like brokers, you can understand brokers don't care about the same things that you guys care about, and certainly the registrars don't. And the lawyers, they're mad. They wish all the domain investors made more money because then you could afford their services. Because most domain investors, now we're getting smart, don't need lawyers anyway. We don't need lawyers, and if there's a UDRP, still don't always need a lawyer. Now, it doesn't mean it's better to have one, but the point is that's an administrative hearing. It's not a lawsuit, so you don't need an officer of the court. But anyway, domain investors, I've always wanted a bunch of domain investors, to load up the ICA membership and then bring up a lot of this stuff when we're, raising hell in some of these rooms. Like, hey, these are important topics to us. And I will say this, when I'm on, basically, we're going for another 50 minutes today because after 20 minutes after the hour, we're calling it this next hour because I got a call, and then I always have these calls with these lawyers on Thursday. And the only other non-attorney in the room is Nat Cohen, and he fights for domain investors. He treats the lawyers, he's tough on them, letting them know, you guys don't understand values sometimes, and you don't understand investment strategies, and you don't understand these assets anyway. And he, it's just, I'm not going to say, refreshing, but he gets it, and he's been doing it a lot longer, and he's got so much money invested in domain names. He's obviously no lightweight, probably best portfolio ever, but just a flat out domain investor. And he doesn't try to pretend like I'm a lawyer. He's like, I'm a domain investor. So I'm thrilled that he's the president, but he's got both feet on the ground, understands shit. Okay, Samit, what topic do you think is a good one to get the crowd riled up here?
Why don't you, if you've got only 20 minutes, run through the stuff you've written about Josh, the SAV update, the DNX update, and the
well, we got
$100,000 domain.
We got 40 minutes. We're going to 20 minutes past the hour, so we got 40 more minutes before. But yeah, all that Josh stuff, I was gonna probably wait till next week because I don't know what Josh basically had this experience with SAV. He wasn't happy, and he asked for a refund, and they didn't give him a refund. Apparently, I just read the update he posted on X today. I haven't talked with him about it, so I was going to ask him. So I'm going to leave that on the outline so Josh can tell us he's not happy with SAV, but he's going to have his own, his own registrar launching very soon. A lot of us look forward to that. He's deciding on pricing right now, but if he likes the dashboard, of his own registrar, which I'm sure he will, sure seems like it'll be sufficient for me. Like I said, I got less names and I'm less critical of how I manage them in my different registrar dashboards. But there was sort of controversial still, GoDaddy Appraisals. I love to talk about this because Wednesday.com is a domain that the Costello brothers have, and I like these guys so much, Michael and David, because they are true OGs in the space, and they're just all about communicating in these last year or two. And really both of them. Michael I see him at quite a few of our meetups out here. He's a neighbor of mine, and I don't see him around, I don't run as much as I used to, but he sees me with my dogs, and he's like, Todd, you're getting chubby. I'm like, I flip him off. Anyway, I'm younger than you, and I'm tougher than you. Keep driving. He's awesome and a good guy, and his brother David has been chiming in a lot, and they are getting involved in stuff. They got smoothie.com on Doma protocol, and of course I know how to say it's smoothie, not smoothies, but I'm 300,000 wholesale, 350, I don't know what it was, and that's what, and then 3.5 million, too much me. Anyway, they have Wednesday.com plus a few other names on domainnames.com, which is GoDaddy's premier marketplace. Okay. And they were always upset that you go and see the GoDaddy appraisal for Wednesday.com and it shows like 26 grand and they're asking 7 figures for the thing. Okay. I don't even know if it's 1 million, 2 million.
23,000.
Oh,
It's
23
above
grand.
25,000. It shows more than 25,000.
Right. And for a while, they were like, listen, I had talks with GoDaddy. GoDaddy's going to revise, I don't know, fix, somehow change their appraisal service. And then, so it was like down, meaning you couldn't get the information when you search certain premium names. But now it's back up. And this really, I know, bothered a lot of people, but specifically the Costello brothers, but David, who has names in their domain name, their domain names marketplace. And I would too. Now, I was looking at some names thinking, well, I'm going to make some offers on some names according to their appraisal. They got some names in there they're asking, I don't know, 400,000 for, and their appraisal system shows them for 4,000. So I'm assuming if you said, hey, I see your appraisal system has this name at 5,000, I'm going to go ahead and offer you 5,500 because I want to be generous. You guys work hard. And then they go, oh, no, you're asking $500,000 for it. I mean, I'm curious. I'm assuming the broker is saying that's a wholesale price or has some creative answer. I can't even imagine what it could be. But what do you guys want to say about this appraisal service? Will they ever fix it to be even usable? Other than it's usable to sort our names because we can sort by how they look at them. Other than that value, is there any in this appraisal system of theirs?
They could improve it with the flick of a switch. Literally, like it wouldn't be good, but would be significantly better, right? They have another. If you have a rep and they give you like a full downloadable version of your portfolio with the values, they have another number called the listing price. I forget exactly what the term is, but it's like it's typically about 2.5 to 3 times, between 2 and 3 times more. Not always. Sometimes it fluctuates a bit. But if they use that number, especially for domains like the ones I sell, bread and butter ones, like that would really make a huge difference. I don't know how different it would be in the upper spectrum, like, in the ones that are quote unquote over 25,000. But for like 98% of domains, this would be a drastic step in the right direction. Again, not perfect, not ideal, but like it's just they have those numbers there. And I don't understand why they don't use them because those numbers are much more realistic. Not realistic, but much more realistic than they are, just to be clear.
I think basically the problem is the legal liability aspect of it. They're a public company, so I think it's more to do with legal than to do with tech.
Yeah, I've heard that before, and I was just trying to figure out the connection there. And I'm like smart, so I can't even figure out. They'll of course they'll use it as excuses and stuff. But I mean, of why we can't release some data and Eric, you were even close on it before, talking about information that's, well, if they make it public, then it's public. But if it's released in a limited fashion only to some people, but it had to be really limited to be considered, private, because there's many times companies will issue news about what they're doing and a lot of people don't see it, only those that are watching certain, avenues of press releases and stuff.
In the past, I used to do it. Yeah, there's some entities in the past that used to do it quarterly. Like, fine, okay, so every quarter they do a quarterly update of sales. After that point, there's nothing preventing them from releasing sales prior to that point, right? The data, let's say their quarterly sales or their quarterly report is from like January to March, and they release it, let's say April 15th. Well, then on April 16th, they could release all their sales from January 1st to March 31st, right? At that point, there's nothing really blocking them. Right? I understand there are certain limitations they could do as a public company because the information has to release simultaneously and to everybody in a format that's expected, right? Compliance and whatever it is. But there's still a lot they can do, and they're way behind in their data sets. From what I know, and they're still using data sets that are like 2 or 3 years old at least. Last I heard. So there's
3 decades old.
Yeah, well, no, that's their system. But I know for the data, I might even be older than that. It's not more than a decade, but it's last I heard it was a few
The appraisals, when you search for a name, the comps they don't show the year. And I've checked, some of those comps are from 2004.
Yeah,
I'm not even exaggerating.
A lot of those comps, like for me, it's a little bit different because I see these comps that they show in GoDaddy auctions, right? And they show a lot of stuff that's wholesale pricing, like a lot of stuff that's wholesale pricing, right? And to me, that bothers me. That wholesale pricing should not be visible to the general public, in my mind, period, right? What we need, what's good for us, are those full retail sales being as widely distributed information as possible, right? Like the voice AI, even other domains like in the 5 figures and 4-figure sales that are like full retail. Like I'm fine with that. That should be shared. That would help us all. But the problem is if it's mashed in with sales of wholesale sales for like 2 and 3 figures, well, they don't show anything under $100. It says less than $100, which is almost even worse. But and they show a domain like I bought for like $200 that I'm planning to sell at like $8,000, and it's a fair retail price at $8,000 that I know as as experienced domain investor, like it should never show for $200. It should never, because people, they don't want to feel like they're swindled, right? It might be worth $8,000 to them, and they didn't see the $200 that I bought it for. They would buy it for $8,000, but see, I bought it for $200. Well, now all of a sudden, they're going to be skeptical. Now, again, most end users are not going to be looking for that information, right? Most end users, I think, especially in my range of stuff, it's like they wake up one day and they have this idea and they match this idea with this domain they came up with, and they see the domain for a price they can afford and they buy it, right? That's, so it's not the end of the world here, but in general, if the wholesale information is more and more public, it can only damage us more. And conversely, the more full retail sales that are public, the more it helps us, because it defines what the value of a domain is, right? Which is something that we are lacking, especially in the general public, our buyers, right? Most end users, they have no idea what a domain is worth.
Yeah, it's to me, it's far too, look, they've got these things positioned far too prominently on these pages. They need to delete it, or they could offer an opt-out so that, domain registrants have a process to have that removed from their domain pages. Or they can create their own GoDaddy buy service where GoDaddy is saying, hey, we will buy it for this. Okay. If they want to buy it, then okay, maybe that could work. But I just see no value in it at all. At all. Very bad.
The buy service makes a lot of sense. And Brand Bucket has done that. We'll buy it for, I don't know, 1% or 5%. And I know Shane posted appraisal service. Yeah, it would make sense if they said, hey, here's our appraisal, and we feel so strongly about our accuracy that we'll pay you 10% of this appraisal amount. There is going to be, I don't know why somebody wouldn't, just do that. Now, it'll piss off domain investors because you would have most names would be like, we think that's worthless. We wouldn't even put $10 because if they had to buy it for $1, so they're going to just say worthless, and then no one's going to like that service. Because imagine if you just focused, you built an appraisal service believing that you were going to have to buy these names at 10%. So what you would do is really just set up an appraisal service that knows, okay, that meets your specs. But I'm guessing my point is you just expect yourself to be a buyer. We buy domain names, and I'd love that. It's like the we buy houses. We buy domains, and then you could go there and they would tell you nothing, $5, nothing, $15, nothing, and just really give you.
But isn't that what Ryan is doing with his digital scrapyard, junkyard, whatever?
Pretty much.
More than $20, $30 a domain, they walk away.
Pretty much, but and most of the things just not interested in. But that's just really what any buyer does. We could do it to each other, but then people say, oh, but there's certain guys, whether it's Braden or Drew, who you can go and try to sell them. I guess you're if it's a single word, then I guess then it opens up. I guess these higher these brokers and domain investors that we know in the business that we hear are good for the money. Basically, they'll give you, like when I sold Drew, they offered me like $15,000 for that NFTT a long time ago. By the time I wanted to sell it, I said, I'll take 8,000 for it. He said, okay. And he still got a bunch of them NFT plus another letter. And I know you always bring that up. Well, one sold for NFTS 15 million and Todd sold at 8 million. I sold mine like fire sale. That other one was one of those you hold forever. If I had NFTS and I said,
Yeah,
hey,
but
I'm broke, I need to
there
sell
is
it
no
quickly, it would have
there is
been
no
150,000, not 15 million or whatever
yeah, but there is no marketplace that pays, or there's no platform that where people can sell domains for fair reseller value. I mean, as a reseller, if you're buying a domain and you can make 10x on it,
It's
I
not
think
fair.
that's
Fair
fair value.
reseller.
But
No,
people don't want to pay 10%.
fair is what that buyer's going to pay. Because you're talking about fair reseller. They're going to hold out of 100 names. They're going to hold 98 of them that don't sell. So we never, take like, well, that's too low. They're pricing in also when they're buying all the ones that aren't going to sell. So even those ones that they know, I am willing to buy this one for 10% of what I plan on retailing it for. Even I know that may not sell. I'm going to be stuck with some of these that I've bought, even the best buyers. Basically, about this appraisal stuff, we're just hoping against hope. They're never going to be accurate and they're never going to be worthwhile. Basically, the good news for us, most buyers don't know about appraisals and don't know domain values. And then it's mostly just causing broker problems. And if you're a broker and you don't know how to sell around an appraisal, well, then that's on you. You're a fool. So, but you can say that it bothers you, but so what? So they could get an appraisal for lower than the GoDaddy appraisals, and then you want $2 million and the appraisal's $25,000. Then your broker, it's like I said, it's mostly brokers not liking the appraisal services. It's just the weirdest thing. They basically are worthless, and GoDaddy should probably just not even have appraisals at all. I mean, that really makes the most sense. But for some reason, they like it. I mean, they want to share it with the public. When you search names, I just searched caragent.com or personalagent.com on GoDaddy, and when you just see the mess of $99 for the broker thing. Here's all the different alternatives. I mean, it's just, I hate the way the page looks, and it's like that, if you don't want that name specifically, if you're open, but you're just searching a name, just so much stuff. You can buy the .casa for $1.99. You can buy the .biz for a penny. You just don't even, it's so confusing. And it just doesn't mean. And then you got my personal agent down in the midst of all these ones you can register for a penny for $7,995. That's a premium if you want. Just confusing as heck, boy. But okay, but we know. So appraisals are always.
Just to
Go
add
ahead.
to what
Yeah.
Thanks, Todd. If that gets to a point where anybody successfully manages to assign appraisals that are accurate, I would highly suggest that only, and this is just out there, kind of a weird thing to say, but I would suggest that only the appraisals are set between March and September, because those months begin in the US with a single digit. And when it gets towards the end of a year, you could find yourself looking at an appraisal that may have been set based on a sale in Germany. And that perhaps was October, which would be a 10. But if the end of the year towards October gets flipped on the date, then perhaps the pricing won't be a true reflection of the day you're looking for that price, because it's an international sale. So I have forever and ever paid attention to even just searching, like, okay, in the GoDaddy system, if they get, like you said, you used it this way too, Todd, where you check, all right, what are they saying it's worth? So you sort it by high to low or whatever. I also only do it between those months, because there are times when a German or other country, I see the dates, and sometimes I realize I'm in GoDaddy.de versus .com, which it's not what I searched. It's not how I got in there. But by the time I dug into it, I found myself in a different interface. And finally, instead of just that, it also applies that you have your names not anywhere near renewal time, because they won't be included in your search. And finally, the best way to search in your own portfolio is to do it, as Summit has been saying, by URL. So, don't bother saying, oh, tell me my entire portfolio, which are my best names. Just only do it by URL or TLD, whatever you want to call the extension. Those are my tips.
I was watching Sherpa, and
So
go ahead, Aaron.
I was gonna say, like, the 10% really for most domains would not be sustainable at all. But Brand Bucket does it for 1%, right? I think I don't know if they still do that, but I think they offer you 1% of what the price they set, which I think for most 4 figures and low 5-figure domains is actually. I know people don't like to say 1%, but it's actually fair, because you have a 1% sell-through rate. That's kind of what you need to balance out, right? So, the higher you go, the higher percentage you can give, because the sell-through rate typically goes up with the higher quality names. But at the same time, like, what's the number, right? I mean, Brand Bucket, I would actually trust them, Margot, a little bit more, because she probably sets the prices herself, right, based on her general knowledge and her experience, which I would pick over any algorithm any day. Right now, is it going to be perfect? No, but when you have humans involved and you get the nuances, your chances are you're going to be a little bit better. But again, like, it's like me. Let's say I'm evaluating domains. Well, a lot of them I can get right. I have good experience in a lot of stuff, and I sell stuff fairly regularly. But at the same time, there might be an industry category that I have no idea about, and I'm like, no, I would not be a good person to evaluate a domain at that level, right? And so I think I just don't understand, like, why everyone's so emphasized. I know the problem with GoDaddy is that they show it, right? Like, for me, that's the question we should be debating, not what the number is, whatever it is. Because for me, I don't care about the numbers, right? For me, GoDaddy says it's worth this, like, I ignore it, right? I bought a domain because I saw value. I saw a potential buyer at a certain price point with a certain sell-through rate, theoretical sell-through rate, and that's how I base my pricing, right? I don't take GoDaddy's number into account at all. Where GoDaddy's number is good in a whole listing of stuff is sometimes, or even Estabot, right? Sometimes if they put a high value, it's like, oh, okay, maybe you missed something, right? And that's usually what happens. And then if it's a 0 value, then it's probably because you have a typo, right? And you just didn't realize that. I almost bought a typo domain today, right? And I was like, oh, whoops. And so I didn't use that. I just saw it, in time, thankfully. But I just, the importance of valuations, us wanting to get these valuations more accurate. I mean, yes, if it's public facing, it is something we should debate and really be, really care about. But if it's just for our own use, like, I don't know, like, I don't really care,
Okay, I can't do work without making it silent in here. No, I was basically searching what is the domain worth, and I think the second result was Dynadot domain name appraisal. So I can see somebody thinking, what's a domain worth? And then they get it. So I'm going to put in paynow.com and appraise, and it says 99,401. All right, well, better than 10,000, I guess. Okay, so I'm going to also search domain escrow.com. And it says,
And by the way, Todd, why would, if it was so good, why does GoDaddy not allow you to appraise GoDaddy.com on their system? You put the name in and it'll say you can't, appraise that one. Why do they do that?
well, you know why they don't want, I mean, one, it's such a goofy ass brand. Well, I owned GoMadre.com, couldn't get GoMother, so I got the Spanish version and dropped it, of course. But anyway, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why they just wouldn't put, 6 million, 75 million, like, make it so crazy, 8 billion. But, so I put in, domainescrow.com on Dyna. It was 19,131. Okay, but people are going to search.
Try Wednesday.com on Dyna.
Okay.
That'll give us a direct comparison, right, with GoDaddy.
Yep. And that number is 53,414. Well, that's not right. It's like domain owners when they own a name.
Sold.
Well, yeah. Well, I would say, like what Brand Bucket, I don't think they do it anymore, Arif. I think, it was 1%. But yeah, if they say, we accept your name on our platform to sell, and you agree with our price for it, we will give you 1%. All right, if you do those first two things, what I'm saying is the platform, if you say, we don't accept it, I would just not accept. So I'm looking for a new platform to do exactly that. Say, we are going to be so strict on how we curate this platform. So if your name's on here, we will give you maybe 1 or 2%, but we have to do two things. Agree to put it on here, and then you got to let us price it and agree to that pricing. And then we'll put our money where our mouth is. No one puts their money where their mouth is in this thing. And that's why I know Ryan is trying to do that. And he's done, that's what I would say, I will say about personal experience. I just share mine with him. But if I knew he was wronging other people, I would still call Ryan out. But I've never heard that. I just know some people don't like his personality. But my point is, I've always been around guy, he was good to me, but he, killed that guy's sister. Okay, so I don't go on with people that are like, hey, but he's always been good to me. If somebody's a lowlife, we're going after him. But Ryan, I think I know from a lot of other folks that have dealt with him, aggressive but a good guy, comes from a good place, and trying to put his money where his mouth is in this space. No one else even does that. Arif brings up Margot at Brand Bucket. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And, Shane brought it up in his post. Yeah, if somebody was willing to, give you a, I don't need it to be an appraisal service, that wants to, appraise it and then give me a percentage of their appraisal to show how accurate they are. My point is just put your money where your mouth is and say, I buy domain names, bring them to me, and then we're going to realize most of them that person doesn't want. And then the ones that they do buy are, but there's guys that are doing this already. You can take your good names but they, it's like a big bullshit thing. What are you looking for it? Well, what are you going to offer me for it? It's a single word. What are you going to, and then they normally don't like to say, I'll give you 20,000. It's a name you think's worth 2 million. But, it's sort of like if they did that with Wednesday.com. They already know what other players in the space would, like, hey, what would you just give me for it? But no one wants to act like they're desperate, I could hold this forever. And you don't have to be desperate to know, listen, I'm a car dealer. I want to sell some of these cars. What do you give me for this one? I don't want to hold this one anymore. I got all these domain names. How much would you give me for Wednesday? Like the Costello. And I'm sure they know what Braden would give them for it. And Braden would, if he was on here, would say, I'd go this amount. And people don't like, I'm sure if anybody in here, Dave, you're maybe not wanting to spend that much, but what would you give for Wednesday? Meaning, what would you personally give? Like, listen, I don't pay a lot of money for any name, so I probably wouldn't even give 15 or 20,000, even if it's worth a lot. And they'll think you're stupid. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I don't pay for I'm not interested in buying names. But Dave, what would you pay for Wednesday.com?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I would probably quickly check what Monday sold for, because I think Monday sold some time ago, right?
Yeah, that's a different day.
Wednesday's like
it's completely different, in my opinion. But go ahead.
Wednesday's up there. I like that name a lot. Ties to the Addams family, the day of the week. I'd say 500,000 to maybe 750.
That's what you pay for. That's what you'd pay for it.
I don't know if it's multiple. Say again?
That's what I'm talking about. What would you pay for it today if somebody said, hey, and you like, I'll scrape together the money. Maybe I'd go higher than what I said, but still, I'm curious, domain investors that you think, oh my God, I can't believe I have this opportunity.
Right now, yeah, no, it probably becomes maybe maybe 125,000, 150,000, something like that. I think there's still a lot of upside on it at that point.
Yeah. Curious what Adam would pay for it down there, because you're right. Spending about $150 seems reasonable, especially if you think, listen, I believe I can sell it for 300 to 500 fairly, safely, and then that way you're not basically these guys. But I'm not the kind that would invest, even if somebody had a certain Corvette, unless knew I could flip it immediately, and you can with other assets with domain names. I guess, sure, I'd buy it for 15,000 and then sell it immediately for 30 or 50 or 100, I guess. But I'm just trying to prove a point that
Wednesday's a little bit of a different animal too, because of spelling. I mean, I think people misspell that a lot. They don't get the actual correct spelling. So it's a little bit longer, but nonetheless, it's still an excellent name, and I feel comfortable at that point. I mean, I never get it for 150,000, but yeah, that sounds about right.
I got you.
Hey, one quick side note: kudos to Dynadot. Hey, kudos to Dynadot. When you mentioned it, I went there. I put in GoDaddy.com. It appraised it for $100 million.
Dude, that's weird, really, huh? I've got to put it
Maybe
in,
they
but
were testing the new system.
okay. Let's put in pork bun. See what they come at. I'm not trying to be mean about Wednesday.
I tried most of the appraisal services, Namedesk, STBot, recently, last week, in fact. And I even used ChatGPT and Grok and to work out. So AIs are easy to manipulate. You say, oh, you forgot about this, so they increase the price by 10x. It's illogical. So you can't do pricing estimation. But in general, the data, like Josh talks about data, or most of these guys, whether it's Tony or Josh or all these guys, they all talk about data being important. So the data, now you have multiple sources. You can do .db, it will give you a number of TLDs, related domains, developed website, CPC, searches per month, exact searches per month, shit like that. Also, expired names expired domains.net.
Yeah, Josh would be a good guest to have on the show.
You can get the data from a lot of sites.
When he's in here next week, I'm going to ask him. Maybe he'd probably pay $150 for Wednesday. But I mean, you're curious. What would someone that's really is somebody who's bought names before in the six figures at least, and the ones that have bought in the 6 and 7 figures, like Braden, I'm sure he knows a number that he'd buy a lot of those names that are in domainnames.com for. What would you actually buy those for? And many of them are priced even higher than, much higher than, these are retail prices, but much higher than Braden might even price some of the names at. And then, anyway, just everyone, once they have a name, you think they're just so valuable. No one, the comps, it's like when you're comparing home sales, people want to say, I want to compare it to the home that sold, that's sort of similar. But they're not talking about in the neighborhood where 98% of the homes don't even sell. And so you're trying to just use the comps of the ones that sell. You got to consider all the ones that don't sell too. Okay, but no one's like, no, we don't want to touch that. But I just like to be mean to domain investors, and I'm one, because it's like other runners. Okay, don't worry about it. We don't have to be friends here. The thing is just, fucking open your eyes. We know what's going on here. You're fooling the people that don't know. I mean, this business, there's a lot of single word names that have never got solid offers, and they've been around for 30 years. Well, if you own one of those single word English words that has never got a great offer for 30 years, okay, well, that's different. There's some that are, you think, not even as great. And like, I don't know the difference. How many great offers has Mike got from Pyramid, Mike Seiger, as opposed to someone that owns Galaxy.com, if that's for sale? The one that you think could be a better name may get more offers. Pyramid could have got, anyway, that's interesting information to me to know. Listen, we had several solid 6-figure offers. I'm looking for 7 figures. Then, okay, behind the scenes, that's important or very I think, valuable information. And then knowing this name over here just has never got, very few. I always used to say, if you got $1 million name, you'll get 6-figure offers, all the time. And that's not true. Of course, I wouldn't know. I don't even own any of those names. But you think there's going to be some amount of high offers, consistent high offers, if you have a name that's really worth a lot. But some people, they can't wait to tell you, I've had this name for 20 years, no offers, and finally it sold for 1.5 million. But it's always these exceptions, trying to get some valuable information here. I'm looking at the outline. Yeah, SpaceX stock. What's the big deal? I'll talk with Josh about that next week. If you have to do a regular job while you chase your dreams, do it. Gary V. What's the guy saying this for? We all know that. You're no less of a rock and roll star if you work at FedEx, but we know that. Yeah, keep your job until, that's just smart people. But when you're young, you're like, no, I'm going to give up everything and I'm going to go for it. And those people, usually sometimes you're like, fucking, you have to make it. Otherwise, you're on the streets. So sometimes it is the right thing to do to get rid of the day job. But I was looking at this quote. If you have a regular job while you domain invest, do it. Yeah. So that's how I change that. So I think most domain investors, when I think of, Dave here on stage, his loan officer or, deals in the loan business. And I was saying and then you really can enjoy and invest in domain names comfortably. And obviously, I think we were in Ish's room, right? And you were saying just being successful there, always successful as a domain. No, it was yesterday. Tell me about, I was, busy doing two things at once, so I didn't join you on stage on Anita's room. And then by the time I almost could, you guys closed the room down. But is that you're going to do that consistently? And how did you like it, Dave? What sort of recap on yesterday? Any good topics in your domain investing room?
Yeah. So Anita came up with an idea of just doing kind of an open floor domain room on Wednesdays, and she asked me to help her co-host this room. And yeah, it's been fun. We've done it twice. We missed a week. She wasn't feeling well. But it's a fun room, open conversation. Anybody can talk, bring up. There's no organization, there's no outline, no schedule. At least at this point, we'd like to do maybe some auctions and some things down the road. But for now, it's just a fun space. Another day where domainers have somewhere to go to talk domains. That's it.
When is it?
Say again?
When is it?
Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard. So it's about 12:30 East Coast.
Okay.
Yeah, no. And I think, it only took me several years before people they still don't know when is that. That's how it is. But yeah, to do it to get consistent. I have a good memory. So then I know, there's only 3 shows on X that I know of that are consistent. Domain name law, and we're going to start doing one case and a legal topic. So we're going to spend 30 minutes, going to really have a good case. Sometimes could do 2, but really, I think I like the idea of discussing a legal topic, legal domain news, something that's, not just going through these, goofy cases. So since we've limited domain name law to 30 minutes, so like this week, Jeff and I are going to talk. I think David may be taking the month of August off. He's had some things he wants to do, and he's building an app for simulcast. So last Tuesday, a couple of days ago, we had some audio problems. I don't know. Sometimes it's this. Sometimes it could be my software, could be YouTube. But anyway, he's working on some software, an app for simulcast, basically to even out the mic volumes for all of us because we all use different equipment. But anyway, next Tuesday, we're going to talk about this GTLD round, how it's wrapping up, some interesting things that are going on. And we're going to talk about, at least one case. But we're trying to keep the domain name law show to 30 minutes. This show we're going to keep to 90 minutes. I'm going to shut this down in 3 more minutes because I got a call in about 10 minutes. But so domain name law on Tuesdays, same time, noon Pacific. This show's going to be 90 minutes. I know Josh will be here next week. He's like, he likes to talk, about domains and domain investing. And he's had a nice break. So on Thursdays, of course, here, and then Ish's room on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Those are the 3 I know about. When people have pop-ups, if they do, we never see them. Don't know. But I'd like to, I like participating in Ish's room. I don't want to be the host, although, I barb him sometimes and pretend like I'm hosting his room, and he tries to straighten me out. But the point is, okay, so if you guys are going to do something consistent on Wednesdays, a lot of us will start showing up and participating and be ready for, some hell to be raised, some pushback, because we don't like all you hosts. I know they don't like me. Raghu, what do you want to say? We got 2 minutes left. What's up?
What's up, that?
I can't say much. I'm not feeling good. But other than that, I just wanted to say, Todd, you just missed the chance or you just denied the offer. Now David took off that offer with Anita. And now they're going to have a big hit show. And what about you now? What are you going to do?
Well, if you have a transaction you need help with, go to domainescrow.com. I didn't bring that up. We are, I'll tell you, the data that we get as an escrow service is something, and a lot of it can't share because can't share people's private transactions. But I'll tell you, I can understand those people at escrow.com, and then even smaller services, whether it's the marketplaces that offer escrow. Well, they get, just the data. It's interesting to see, okay, who's really putting their money where their mouth is and buying domain names, and then stories of, the parties of why they sold something at such a great rate or how long they held out. But anyway, if you have a domain transaction and you're like, well, I don't know the buyer too well, or I do need a third party to oversee this, we got different services, but just like escrow.com, we offer a transfer service where it's really, I say, half escrow, and then a full escrow service where the domain and the money both go to, into the JJN Solutions accounts before they're distributed to the buyer for the domain names, and then the money for the seller. But important area of business. But Raghu, no, I was never. I don't think I was ever going to. I'm glad. I'm not. If I'm going to do this thing with Ryan, if we're still discussing that about tracking this, investment to try to make $1 million in domain investing. You see, I'm limiting domain name law. I'm thrilled. That's going to be 30 to 40 minutes. This show is just easy. Look, it's already, that 80 minutes, and didn't really even get into much stuff. It's just easy to talk domains, and I appreciate everybody being here and even being part of it. I mean, thanks, Dave and Eric.
I really appreciate you guys. I just come up with a question here. Who sold Unstoppable.ai for $100,000?
Don't know. We'll have to discuss that next time. Didn't know that sold. Didn't know.
Probably Richard Cockendale, because he's the one who reported it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, I mean, and I guess it's one of those words where there are several companies that use Unstoppable in their name. So, but of course we know the domain company. But I would think, did you see where it resolves to? I would think probably spent that money at Unstoppable. Domains probably bought it. I think $100,000's not too much, and they are sinking a lot of money into AI, so that doesn't seem like too much. But all right, everybody, I appreciate you being here. See you on Ish's show on Saturday. Until then, you need any, like I said, escrow services, go to domainescrow.com. You need any legal services in the domain space, jjnsolutions.com. But we're going to be here next week with Josh talking domains. So thanks a lot for joining. See you next time. Take care of yourself.
Yahoo!